On this episode of China Uncensored, is it war on the open sea? Lies, betrayal, backstabbing. Things are heating up in the South China Sea as the Chinese regime has a massive confrontation with Australian warships. Australia is sending warships through the South China Sea. The story was first reported by Australia's national broadcaster, ABC. An official described the confrontation between Chinese and Australian warships as polite but robust. Yeah? Well, you know what else is robust? Australia's international engagement. Clearly, we're on the brink of World War III. And what does Christopher Pyne, Australia's defense minister and most annoying man in Australia, have to say about the most dangerous confrontation of the 21st century? He said, "I think confrontation is somewhat of a tabloid-style description of what goes on in the South China Sea very regularly." Did he say tabloid? Right. How dare all the media talk about it like it was some big confrontation? Oh, they're all calling it a challenge now. Okay. Well, you know, the fine journalists over at The Express in the UK called it a confrontation that might bring World War III. And they're not a tabloid. I mean, look at what other fine reporting they do. NASA shock, huge alien herd of animals found in space probe images of Mars. Or monstrous 7-foot creature pictured after murderous rampage. Oh, and end of the world 2018. Will the rapture occur on April 23rd? Shock prediction says yes. That's today. Very important news. I'm glad I have been so well informed. Look, it's hard to make money with news these days. Is it so wrong to jazz things up a little bit? What's that, Shelley? Oh, yes, it is. For everyone else, not me, obviously. This is a comedy show. Okay, so details of the confrontation are actually a bit sparse. But what we do know is that 3 Australian warships sailed through the South China Sea on their way to Vietnam. The problem is there's a wee bit of disagreement about what's international waters and what's part of China. See, the Chinese Communist Party says that everything within this 9-dash line is China's territorial waters, and that it has been since ancient times. But if that isn't convincing enough for you, the Chinese regime went ahead and built artificial islands in the South China Sea and put missiles on them. China's defense ministry confirmed that last week's challenge, did happen. Typically, when this happens with American warships, the Chinese Navy says, "You're in Chinese territorial waters, get out," and the American ships respond, "No, this is international waters, deal with it." In fact, the U.S. regularly engages in these freedom of navigation operations every couple of months. That really doesn't float the Chinese regime's boat. It's hard to militarize a region and seize control from 6 other competing claims when the U.S. constantly reminds everyone that your Navy isn't all that. However, it's unusual for Australia to do this, especially since China is Australia's biggest trading partner. In the past, Australian officials have been hesitant to confront the Chinese regime. I just hope the Chinese Navy made sure to translate their message into Australian English. "Listen up, you bloody drongos. This here's fair dinkum Chinese waters, no bogans allowed." But the relationship between China and Australia is not doing so well lately. Just look at the tension between this kangaroo and panda in my favorite Chinese state-run media, the Global Times. Earlier this month, everyone in Australia freaked out over news the Chinese Communist Party is considering setting up a military base on the island nation of Vanuatu, 1,200 miles off Australia's coast. The Chinese regime denies it, of course, but several years ago they also said they weren't militarizing the South China Sea, and, well, look at where we are now. It's hard to deny the Chinese regime has been expanding its military reach, not just in the South China Sea, but also all along the Indian Ocean. That's the string of pearls theory. The Chinese regime is making deals with countries that could eventually mean port access for the Chinese Navy. But Australia's recent freedom of navigation operation seems to be a way of pushing back. Now sure, Chinese state media may have some harsh words for them, like saying that Australia has a twisted attitude toward China, and that Australia really ought to work with China and other regional countries to maintain peace and stability in the South China Sea. But ultimately, when Australia pushes back on the South China Sea, there's not much the Chinese Communist Party is going to do. Yes, they've been able to throw their weight around with smaller countries in the past, but times are changing. Now, there's the threat of a trade war with the US, a trade war that Chinese authorities had better resolve because China has the most to lose. So in this political climate, the Chinese regime can't afford to play hardball with Australia. The Chinese economy is already under serious threat. And that's not tabloidy. Even top communist officials are talking about it. So if ever there were a time for Australia to challenge the Chinese Communist Party, this is it. And Australia knows it. So what do you think about the confrontation between Australia and China? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. Hey, if you like China Uncensored's approach to China news versus, say, tabloids, consider supporting us on the website Patreon. It allows fans of the show to contribute for each episode we publish. Viewer support is what saved the show after YouTube took away most of our ad revenue. So visit patreon.com/China Uncensored to find out how you can support the show and get some cool stuff in exchange.